This podcast is hosted by Sheza Barbour, co-founder of Good Tree Institute, and joined by licensed therapist Archie Aquino and our resident scholar and founder, Dr. Nadia Qatranji.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Timeless Conversations with Good Tree Institute. My name is Sheza Barbour, and I am followed here today with Dr. Nadia Qatranji and Archie Aquino. We are continuing. Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam. So we're continuing our story of Surah Maryam, and today we're really going to delve into the characteristics of Maryam herself and her capacity and ability to love, especially her relationship with Allah. So, Dr. Nadia, do you want to kick us off and continue on?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So now, we've addressed Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We've addressed this aspect with as we were talking about Zakaria in the beginning and about Surah Maryam in general. We addressed that connection and that relationship that was between them, and how Maryam alayhi salam was basically dedicating herself and spending a lot of time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how Zakaria alayhi salam was taking care of her. He was the one who was appointed, and he was chosen out of so many trials to be the one who is making sure that her needs are met and all of that, as she's doing, as she's dedicating her time to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what the unique thing about Maryam, let's why don't we just read the ayah, and then we get a little bit more into it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ مَرْيَمْ, and mention in the book Maryam, Mary alayha salam, إِذِ انْتَبَذَتْ مِنْ أَهْلِهَا مَكَانًا شَرْقِيًّا, when she took, intabadat is kind of like when nabada is to really put something aside and not like be seen anymore. And that's what she did. She basically secluded herself. She withdrew from her family. إِذِ انْتَبَذَتْ مِنْ أَهْلِهَا مَكَانًا شَرْقِيًّا, a place in the east. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is basically alluding to the fact that she was wanting to be with him, wanting to spend time, and wanting to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to strengthen her connection with him. And with Maryam alayhi salam, that's the epitome of who she is. She was like in her teen years. She was like, people say around 16, 17, things like that, right? And, girls at that age are usually, what they care about is like, yeah, I want to get married, I want to fall in love, I want that, I want this. And because the reason being is because we have so much at this age, especially at this age, and especially women, they have so much emotions. There's an abundance of that. And people in general try to direct it to that direction. There's nothing wrong with really having and enjoying that kind of relationship when it's the right time. But what that alludes to is the fact that there's so much capacity to love. And many times, yeah, go ahead, Shazam.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking about this in terms of my own children, like when we're dealing with teens, and we deal with teens a lot in Good Tree with our camps, but also just even personally, just kind of thinking about her capacity to love, and she's primed for it. Like you're saying, like this is the age where teenagers really need that love too. They need that extra love from whether it's parents or whatnot. And for us to, as parents, to really, and role models for those of us that deal with camps and teens and stuff, to really support that and build that connection and help them develop a connection, not just love for people or love of people or that, but the love of Allah, like really having and developing a relationship with God, and understanding that capacity and really focusing on that for them, so that becomes their core, right? Like, so that becomes their core as they grow up, when life is going to hit you. Things are going to get rough. You're going to get heartbroken. So much is going to happen to you in life. But if we can stabilize them, and these prime teen years of like, hey, you got to have this relationship with Allah. Allah's always got your back. God's going to have your back, and you got to focus on that, then that just serves them right as they even develop later on.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think it's random that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Maryam as an example and as an epitome of the love, her being at this age and kind of highlighting and focusing this concept that you're talking about, and her being the woman that who she is. And I really love what you said, and especially the fact that in our day and time, love is basically reduced, literally reduced to the romantic love, and it just becomes this is the only one. I'm not diminishing this by any means. It's extremely important, and at the same time, like if people expand a little bit, they talk about the love of family, and there's also, of course, all of that love that happens between friends. Now it's even kind of like starting to replace the romantic love, because a lot of people in this culture are not even finding somebody that they can get married to and love. A lot of times it's kind of like that intense relationship between friends is becoming a replacement for that. But maybe the reason this is happening and the reason we're out of balance when it comes to love is because as you said, the anchor aspect of love is missing. Our ability to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very inherent. It's very natural. And it's very, we have a pull, we are attracted to it. Usually we give the example, you know how oxygen has an affinity to red blood cells. It just gravitates towards it, right? When there's oxygen, it's just like gravitates. There is that natural, like it bonds right away in our bodies. So it's the same thing. When we are exposed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to who He is, and we get that time that we spend, you're going to feel that you want that. It's a pull. And when that happens, guess what happens to your relationships? Since we're speaking about that, all your love for other ones becomes even more genuine and becomes even more anchored, and it becomes even more long lasting. You love people more, actually, because it's sourced by this love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I think people project their experience of love being not an anchor, but a destabilizer. I think people project that when they get into romantic love, they have that infatuation, they're excessive, they don't think straight, they're not going to be able to be balanced, and they also fear losing it at the same time.
That's so true. And it's because when you love out of, then that's why we're trying to focus on that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the source and sourcing all these loves. When it's sourced by this love, it's not attachment kind of love. It's a true love. Like, I love you because of who you are, not because I'm attached to you and you're giving me some kind of benefit. A lot of the times, love right now, whether the romantic love or the friendship love, or even, unfortunately, like people, how they love people around them who they're related to, it's because you're fulfilling a need for me. Even if it's an emotional need, or kind of like I'm spending good time with you. So it's all about me. Very selfish and very attached, to your point, and that's why you get all of these problems that happen that you're addressing, that you're talking about. Whereas if it's sourced from that love of the divine, you kind of like are what's the word? There's a word about like activating. You're activating your capacity to love. When you love Allah, your ability to love becomes magnified and becomes real, and you start loving people for who they are. For me, I noticed with my husband, when this thing opened up for me, I'm just like, oh my God, like I actually don't, when I never see how it is for him. I'm always seeing it from my end. In our relationship, I'm looking for what's in it for me. What is it for him? What is it like for him? One of my biggest indicators of if I'm connected with Allah, my relationship with my husband is like crystal clear. It's beautiful. And when I notice that there's something off, I know there's something off in my relationship.
I mean, that's really powerful. It's a powerful form of self-reflection, and I think a test, as you're describing, a litmus test for yourself is what I'm saying. To see like where you might be off in your connection to God. Like as an indicator. I was like, okay, well then how are your relationships going with around you? If those are off, then maybe you got to go back to the source and kind of sit with it. And I also want to bring back up what you had brought up, Dr. Nadia, is the element of seclusion.
Yeah.
How Maryam withdrew, right? And we talked about this, I think, a little bit last time. We're in a different ayah, but again, Allah mentions it again. And just that sense of how she withdrew from society, from people. Like, she needed her space. She needed her downtime. She needed her that element of seclusion to really develop that connection with God, to kind of hone in on it and like, let me focus in on this a little bit. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and how do we implement that in today's society, and cultivate that, but not to extremes, kind of?
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And to your point, if you notice how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it in this ayah, in ayah 16, when he said, when she withdrew from her family, a place to the east, and then he highlights it again in the next ayah, where he says, فَاتَّخَذَتْ, so she took, مِن دُونِهِمْ, away from them, without them, hijaban, a barrier. So she literally had, like, to your point, to what you were saying, she really secluded herself. And it's interesting that he mentioned it twice, like it's as if you didn't get it the first time, get it the second time. It's as if he's saying, if you don't allocate certain time between you and Allah, just you by yourself, sitting and having that alone time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not going to be able to experience that relationship. You're not going to be able to develop that love. You can't. And a lot of the times, to your point, a lot of the times people feel that, okay, well, what that means is that I just have to abandon life and be by myself and just like live out of life.
You have to be a monk.
You have to be a monk. Nun. A nun. Exactly. Is that true?
No. Yeah. I think it's moments, it's just, it's literally just moments of time. It's like when you can just seclude yourself in your room. It's just, hey, turn off that phone or put that away, put all the distractions away, and just sit and just be alone, and be present to yourself and be present to Allah. A lot of people don't like that. They don't like that sense of being alone with themselves.
Exactly.
And trying to, connect or get out of all the stuff that's running around in our heads and our hearts.
And as a matter of fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says it in the Quran, what this looks like. What does this seclusion look like? He clearly says it. Like he talks about, for instance, in very various places in the Quran, he talks about allocating certain times early in the morning and in the evening. Like carve out some of that time after Fajr, around Maghrib or before you sleep. Dedicate that time just so that you sit and, as you said, you have that silence, you have that time with Allah. You mention Him, you be with Him. He talks about not at night, like get up a little bit in the night and pray to Him. So it's not that you're just like doing nothing. No, actually, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu used to say, if I sleep during the night, I lose my connection. So I need to make sure that I'm up and doing that. And if I sleep during the day, I lose my responsibility. Because during the day, you're accountable. You have life. You have to live life. And that's the action that you actually are going to be held accountable for. You can't just sit there and just like say, okay, I just want to, be with Allah and spend my time just loving. And that's nice. That's comfortable. But this is your nourishment. It's not your connection with Allah is your nourishment. But that has to translate into action. You see, so that whole aspect that people say, oh yeah, well, if you really want to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to abandon life. No, that's not our deen. That's not Allah's way. But extract some time on a daily basis, maybe on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. Annually, you could take like Ramadan, for instance, the last 10 days. A lot of people take just like, I really want to have i'tikaf. Like I need to have that time for myself. This is very important.
Yeah, so we call it in America, or in this world now, retreats, right?
Retreats, exactly.
You gotta go on a spiritual retreat. Well, we just call it i'tikaf. You just need to take a few days off, and just remove yourself from all the hubbub going on in your life and just focus.
Yeah, so the model and the design is very clear in our tradition about how to approach this love, how to revive this love, and how to ignite it and how to develop it. It's very clear if you follow it. It's very compatible with actually living a fully functional life and getting married and having kids and enjoying life and enjoying your time and doing your whatever you really do enjoy. It's not taking you away.
When are you supposed to sleep, though?
Yeah, you sleep. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not, and that's the other aspect, by the way. I mean, the whole Allah's pattern is so beautiful. Our problem nowadays is that we delayed our sleep time so much. Like we're getting into something else now, but that's fine. I mean, it's just like our sleep pattern is so wrong, and it's incompatible with our biology, by the way. Especially
our
younger.
Sleep pattern should be like we're camping.
Yeah, exactly. You should sleep. Like you should not be that late after Isha and after night starts. This is the time. And if you look at physiology and how your hormones are operating, this is where your repairing hormones start high skyrocketing. This is where your melatonin starts skyrocketing. But when during that time, you're awake and you sleep like at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or whatever, you pass midnight, you pass the rich hours of sleep. And that's why people feel that no matter how much I sleep, I actually can't get enough. There are studies that have confirmed hours are not the same in the day. Hours of sleep before midnight are the ones what they call them positive sleep. They give you a lot, like each hour is as if you did 2. Whereas if you sleep in the morning where your cortisol is hitting up after the sun rises and everything is like, okay, we're good to go, let's get up. That's when you sleep. He says they call it negative sleep. Like each hour you sleep, you need 2 hours instead, as if you're depriving yourself from sleep. So the whole cycle that we live in is we're not actually having a functional sleep. We're having a dysfunctional sleep pattern. If we organize that, I mean, I never feel that I'm lacking sleep, ever. I'm always comfortable, get up very energetic, everything is fine. But when it hits like late, sometimes I hit go past 10 or past 11 in rare times, and it's hard when I do that. I kind of like have to compensate later. But the earlier I sleep, the more energetic I get up, no problem. So you get your sleep, but get your quality sleep. That's what we're missing. And by the way, they talk, of course, I know our system these days, like the way we operate and our work schedules don't always match that, but they talk a lot about having a short kind of like nap during the day. I know that some schools, whereas either in Japan or China, I've heard that what they do, they actually give that to their students, like half an hour, just calm down and relax and let yourself be.
Yeah, I was just curious because you're like, if you sleep during the night, then you lose this. If you sleep during the day, then you lose this. I'm like, well, what's left? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, and by the way, not the whole night. It's a little bit of it. I remember when I was doing my training, the doctor who I was working with, he would say, I wake up at 3:30 a.m. This is not a Muslim. It's like, this is where I check my emails, this is where I do my workout. And this guy was like in his 60s. Check my email, do my workout, get my routine, everything done so that I can leave home by 7 a.m. This is the time that I'm most energetic, that I'm able to do these kinds of things. So if you look any efficient people, that's the time they're really up and they're really doing what they need to do. It's just when it comes to the deen, somehow we feel, oh my God, like that is anti-human, anti-physiology. Well, look at successful people and see what they do.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at this, these ayahs and the examples we're getting about Maryam as an adult, but also as a parent. You know, when we're talking about seclusion, of how do we instill in our kids that element of downtime where they unplug, especially how hard it is these days with the amount of social media and connectivity that we have, the addiction that we have to our phones, our devices, all these things is, you know, like teaching them like, hey, you need to disconnect. You need to have this alone time for yourself to just balance things out and also instill in that a sense of self-reflection and, you know, dua or just connection to Allah. And I know you guys deal with this all the time because I send my kids to camp and you guys are taking care of them. And I'm sure you guys can see the dramatic effect of just having them go to like a 4 or 5 day camp that is, you know, in nature. You're secluding them. I mean, they're with each other, but they're just disconnected from the rest of the noise of the world and their phones and devices.
Yeah, they always complain on the first day because they go through withdrawals because they're addicted, and then but after that, at the end of the camp, they're always like very appreciative, and they experience this connection to each other and to Allah that they didn't think was possible because they're, removed from all the distractions.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even we had to, when the summer camps, just to avoid any heat or anything like that. So we decided that we wanted to do a session right after Fajr, like you're talking about 5:30. And interestingly enough, when we surveyed, they loved it because we have them sit outdoors, weather is beautiful, and the sun is rising. This is such a beautiful time. It's the time where Rasulullah ﷺ actually told Aisha, don't sleep, like get up, don't sleep. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending his provision. There's so much beauty and barakah and nourishment in this time, spiritual nourishment. They love it.
Yeah. It's the power hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing, and I agree with you 100%. I think we just have to keep. I don't shy away from this with teens and with my kids, like constantly. I know it takes something because I know for me it took something to shift my habits that I grew up with. Just like sleeping late and all of that. But I keep pushing at it. I keep mentioning it and hammering it and saying it and giving some practice to it until it gets something wakes up, because that's what happened to me. It kept being said to me until something woke up in me, and now I can't even imagine my life without this pattern and this way. And that's how people can develop that connection and have that love, inshallah.
Well, I think it's important to address the fact that Allah, that we're talking about the surah, that it's Maryam, that Allah's really using her as an example of what we should be doing. How do we follow her? How do we follow her as a role model of, you know, what this capacity of love looks like? And how do you do that? The fact that it's a female that Allah is bringing forth, and I know we brought this up, you know, in the introduction episode, but again, just to highlight that Allah's bringing forward a female role model, a female
Yeah,
example to show everyone, to kind of balance it out that, hey,
yeah,
everybody needs to take from her, you know, listen to her, take from her,
Yeah.
her ability, and learn from it and implement it in our own lives.
100%. And I remember we even said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned her as a role model to the believers in general, not only to women. And I think and we mentioned that a lot. Like a lot of the times people feel that, okay, women can be role models for women and not for everybody. And that's not what Allah is saying. And to your point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have all prophets are very highly spiritual, right? They're connected to Allah and they love Allah. But who did he bring as a role model for that connection and that love? Why did he highlight Maryam alayhi salam in that capacity to, as you said, to highlight the female population's capacity in that spiritual growth and their ability, their unique ability to contribute to the spiritual growth to people? There is an equal ability to grow spiritually, but don't downplay women's role. And kind of like, again, it's that aspect that we have where it's just like, yeah, well, it's not for it's just women can do for women. No, our contribution is mutual, and we need to benefit from each other, and we need to learn from each other. And if you look at the icon and epitome of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Muslim tradition, is who is that? When you think about it, it's Rabi'a al-Adawiyya, right? When you talk about her, even the Hassan al-Basri, who he was, and he was known to be of how, like, his connection and his devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He would go and he would tell his friends, like, let's go revive our hearts at the doorstep of Rabi'a. Let's go reconnect at the doorsteps of Rabi'a. That was normal. That was clear.
Yeah.
Sahaba radiallahu anhum used to always go to Aisha after the Prophet ﷺ left this world, and that's where they would reignite. We did something. I don't know what we did. We did something later on along the way that we twisted and we skewed this view. That's not the prophetic view. That's not the divine view. And I really pray that we keep expanding and kind of like, when we make a perception or a perspective, make it from a learned way, not just adopting whatever everybody else is saying. And I think also, speaking about the love of the divine and the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a lot of the times when it comes to Islam and the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a lot to talk about over here.
I don't, like we said, like, I don't know where things got twisted or shifted along the way in history of Islam, where it's like, it has this impression of being so rigid and so strict, and the essence of love has been lost or diminished, compared to, like, when you Christianity, and when people bring up Jesus, and this is, he's from Maryam, but it's like, it's all about love. Jesus is all about love, and Christianity is all about love, and yet, what happened? Like, we have this, and Allah's even showing us in the Quran, but like, somehow in our practice in Islam and within the Muslim community, whatnot, that essence of love has been diminished.
Yeah, totally. To the point that, and I think this has to do with a lot of the times when some people went to the extreme, and they, there is an extreme case, there are extreme cases where people just like, it's all about love, and they lost the form, right? They lost the rules. And as a reaction, a lot of people would just like be so scared that the rules won't be kept and maintained. And that's why they focus so much on it. And any percentage of highlighting the love becomes very, like, people freak out. It's like, oh my God, but you need to be balanced. You have to make sure that you maintain balance. If you do 5%, like if you express a 5% of that focus on the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and your 95% about the deen is all about like maintaining the rules, people feel love here is exaggerated. Literally, it's like, this is how I've seen it over and over and over. Oh, you're spending so much time on this. You're focusing so much on this.
Yeah, as a convert, I've experienced this. It's like rules, rules, rules. You know, the Sharia and its technicalities, and it's just so heavy with that. And nobody's discussing Rahman. You know, the Rahmah of Allah. It's said in the prayer, but no one's really focusing on that.
Yeah, and I notice it when I'm telling you, when I kind of highlight so much on it, and other people would just like start to, okay, but we have to remember the balance. You know, we have to remember. Okay, I know we always talk about this, and we've been hammered with the aspect of the majestic capacity, and there's our accountability, and He's holding us accountable. We've been hammered with it, but we haven't been as hammered with how much He loves us and how much He cares about us and how much we can love Him. And actually, if I love Him, I'm going to apply the Sharia fully. I've never heard of any of our original scholars, traditional Arifin Billah, the people of God, that they don't follow the Sunnah of the Prophet to the T. That they are not so meticulous about each aspect of their deen. They are, those Arifin Billah, those people of God, they would be like very clear on how they follow the rules. They would be clear on understanding how the Prophet ﷺ did. So it's just like, that discrepancy is not there. We created that discrepancy. But now, honestly, I feel, at least in the next few generations, the aspect of the rules is very anchored in our deen. It's very, like, you learn it, study it, and just do it. We're very solid. But the aspect of love is honestly not so much. The aspect of connection, not so much. And this is the source. This is what actually feeds your ability and your desire to follow the rules. That was the case for me. I was like feeling the rules were a burden. I didn't want to do them. I was running away from everything. Salah, prayer, hijab, anything. It was hard until my heart got connected. And then I was like, give me, what do you want? Give me anything. I'll do whatever you want. I learn, I'll study, I'll follow. When the heart is ignited, when you love, you'll do.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel, like we talk about this in a lot of things. If you lead with love, everything else will follow. I do think it's interesting, though, sometimes I've encountered with people that aren't necessarily practicing or religious or anything. Like everything's relative, everything is la la, whatever. But even when you start talking about the love of Allah, or like that this is possible, like that there's really a true love that you can connect to, there's also pushback. Like they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to have this conversation that that's even a possibility, or they don't believe you that that's even possible. And it's not coming out of strictness and rigidity. It's just like, I don't know. It's just an interesting thing I've encountered where it's like you start talking about love and connection and things like that, and then they just sort of like, yeah, that's not for me, or I don't believe. I don't know. It's just an awkward, like there's a blockage somewhere. So I feel like I've seen it on both spectrums. I've seen it from the people that are like the really strict people. The pushback comes from the strict, oh, we got to focus on the majesty and the rules and be balanced mentality. But then I also see it, I've had that experience from the other side that there's still a blockage of like, no, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be because what got these people to be kind of like not practicing, right? Not wanting to be part of this is because they felt it was just rigid and rules, just like how I experienced when I was young. And so for a lot of people, they feel legitimized and justified that they left because all what they see is dryness and it's really not helping. Like it's not doing anything to me. So when you bring out the real deal, it's kind of like waking up something that people may not want to deal with. Like, oh, you're saying that this is legit, this is real, and I really need to revisit this aspect and come back to Allah. For a lot of people, there's a lot of fear towards that.
I think people are uncomfortable with love in general, and then it gets projected onto even the love of Allah.
That's true.
But it's not the same, right? I mean, the love of Allah is not the same as the romantic love of people. But that's what they kind of conflate.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Yeah, and it's again, as I said, I mean, to me, I'm really seeing it very clearly that this is what needs to be highlighted. This is the weakness that we have as Muslims and as a general Muslim space. We need to highlight that and focus on that. And honestly, it's just like I see it just like how if your child is um, like very strong in math, let's say, and needs to work a little bit on English, or you have your muscles are, when you work out, you have certain muscles that are very strong, and maybe your arms need a bit more work. So when you focus on that aspect and you do less of the areas where you're strong, you don't say, hey, you need to balance. Well, I mean, yeah, if you give 5 minutes to this or whatever, 10 minutes to this, and you give like a couple hours to the other one that you're weak in, you don't say, oh, you should be balanced. You should actually focus on what's missing. You need to highlight the aspect that's missing because it is the source of it. So inshallah, ya Rabbi, that's the work that, and alhamdulillah, things are coming better, are becoming more highlighted, and there's a pull towards it. Like there is the pull and a need that is out there towards that connection, because it is what will feed your alignment with the rules of the deen, with the knowledge of the deen. It's what feeds it.
I just was thinking about how we just pointed out that the human kind of love for people is different than the love of Allah. But at the same time, isn't there this, like, I know, Dr. Nadi, you told me that if you love Allah, then you will love people.
Mm.
So it's kind of like, what's the difference there? Is what I'm wondering.
In terms of what do you mean? What's the difference?
Like this, how the love of Allah is not the same as the way you love people. But if you love Allah, you do love people.
Yeah, well, what we were alluding to is the default way of that emotional love. It's not really love; it's more of an attachment. We give it the word of love, like there is some kind of attraction. You call it sometimes either an attraction or I kind of like find something that's in common and I start loving that person, but it's really more of an attachment. The true love is a love that is not about you. When you love somebody, you love them. But a lot of the times our expression, what we call love these days, is more of like fulfilling my needs and my attachment to something or my attraction to something. It's me. That kind of love to people is not a genuine love. And we see it because it's manifested in attachment. If I get annoyed with them, I leave them, whatever, and it's not true. Whereas the genuine love that is just like the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can have a genuine love for people, which is the one that is about them. You care for them. And we've seen examples like that. There are cases where that love transcends that initial attachment or initial kind of attraction. Like for instance, a couple married couples, when they stay forever with each other, when they get old, that connection is not just like that attraction and attachment. It's a true bond. It's a true connection. It's like, I care for you. So that kind of love is the same nature of the love that we have for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why when you develop that capacity in terms of your love to Allah, it feeds into loving people. It pours into it and it becomes real, genuine.
Yeah,
That's so important.
Yeah, I see it as almost like a flow diagram where it's like when you're filling yourself up with divine love, it's flowing into you and through you so that your interactions, even with people, like you're giving it to them. It's like you're giving off positive energy, but it also helps you become, I think, a more forgiving person, a more accepting person, a more gentle person, a more kind, like all these attributes that help you really love other people and see them for who they are. Like really, they're, as we talk about in the past, Nadia, Dr. Nadia, like you're seeing them through their soul,
Mm.
and not really through their actions or what they're
Yeah.
doing or not doing, and then that the butting of heads or hearts that you sometimes experience with other people that makes you at times, if you don't, if you're not secure and full yourself, it makes you like, forget it, I'm out, or I drop you,
Yeah.
or whatever, and bounce off. It's like magnetic energy.
And by the way, when you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't only transcend to your love to people, it transcends to everything. You love nature, like you see nature differently. You love nature, you love animals differently. You love even any things, like even the material things. You appreciate everything around you. It exudes everywhere. You see that, like if you see the people of God, how they even interacted with material stuff was very gentle. They saw everything in a different eye. It's just you're so present to everything and the value of everything you have around you. It's really a different way of loving and seeing and interacting and experiencing things. Just very alive. And by the way, when you are with people like that, you sense it, you feel it through them.
So I feel like a lot of this conversation, as we're talking about the love of Allah, the example of Maryam that we can use, it's also proposing questions about, like, what is your relationship to the deen vis-a-vis love, right? So just in kind of conclusion, some of our questions for this week for us to think about, and reflect on, is really, what is your relationship to religion, to the deen? Again, through the lens of what this whole discussion has been about love. So for instance, do you just pick it up from your surroundings, you know, what was given to you? You just see it as part of your culture and identity. Like you haven't thought about it, you haven't analyzed it, you haven't internalized it, you know? Or do you take your religion, your deen, as just one compartmentalized section of your life? Like where you just do your duties. Like, I just need to do X, Y, and Z. Again, this kind of reflects back on, some of our conversations of when we start talking about love, people are just like, no, 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 no. You just gotta stick to the do's and the don'ts. Like, go back to like the basics. Like, you just make sure that you don't forget that you're doing your duties, right? And you're not really self-reflecting on that. Or do you go to the other extreme where, you approach things as, I'm just a spiritual person, but there's no structure. You just say that you love everybody, that you love God, but you don't want to actually follow any particular structure. Like, there's no balance in it. You're just on the other side. You're just, you know, the, I feel like we see that a lot, especially nowadays too, where I'm just a spiritual person, but I don't want to do anything. Or, on the other hand, is your relationship with the deen, with religion, one where you're seriously, you're learned, you're studied, you became well versed in Islamic knowledge, so you feel like you're accomplished and you got what you got and what you need, and you live by the rules and structure of Islam? Or do you see your life finally? Are you on that seeker's path where you're constantly learning, you're constantly understanding, you're constantly uncovering your love for the divine? Like, that's actually part of the goal, where you're seeking, how do I become closer to Allah? How do I build that connection? How do I develop that sense of love for the divine? That for you, that this is really a lifelong process, and it's mutually dependent and equally important. Like, you have the logic and the heart, where it's all a heart, mind, body connection. Like, it's all encompassing. And, I think those are the examples that we see in Maryam and see in the stories that are presented to us as examples for us to follow in the Quran. But take some time, reflect on your relationship to the deen, to religion, to the love of Allah through that? And where do you see yourself in all of these? And what kind of personality, what kind of perspective and lens do you take on? And inshallah, we'll see you again next week as we continue the story of Maryam. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu
alaikum.
If you like listening to our conversation about the Quran, imagine how much more you would get out of participating in a live conversation about the Quran with Dr. Nadia and a room full of people engaging with the Quran. Join us at our next in-person Seeds of Wisdom retreat, online with our weekly Quran and Me sessions, or for the youth at one of our Camp Z retreats.